Hi everybody, Mark Plugorn here for the Photographer Academy and welcome to another Talk Photography. Today I'm going to be joined by Dave Shrimpton and we're going to be talking old school, new school, as it were. We're going to be talking about the good old days of film brought into the modern day of today. For any of you who are really interested in the Collodion style we're going to see, remember there is a film on the Academy that shows you how to do it. Sorry about this, Dave, you'll tell me off in a minute, but it kind of gives you a bit of a showing you how to get a similar effect. But like an old darkroom fiend like I am, you cannot beat the original. So get those dishes out, have a bit of fun, but it's a little bit more involved. I'm sure Dave will explain with us. Remember, you can view all our Academy talk photographies on the Academy site, as well as on our YouTube channel. But of course, we've got thousands of films on the Academy ready for you to actually download. You can join the Academy for as little as £100 for the whole year, where you get to actually view everything and download everything as well. Plus, we have our Xenon Awards, lots of other little things for members to take part in. Right, enough about Academy. Let's get on with the main man. Dave, thank you very much for joining us.
You're most welcome, Mark. You're most welcome. I hope I can pass on some of my enthusiasm to everybody.
Oh, I'm so chuffed. I touched on before we got live that it's always great when I get a yes, because there's certain photographers I want to get on, and then they're either too busy or they don't feel like doing it, or they'll not get around to doing it and things really. And so when I kind of earmark and I go, oh, I've got a yes on the first date, as it were, I was well chuffed. So Dave, thank you for coming on board.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Tonight's a bit different because we're going to be looking at all of the same style of images, and it's very old school in its procedure as such. Let's talk a little bit about you and how you got into photography before we start to talk about the technique. Is that okay?
Of course, absolutely.
So where did it all begin?
Okay, so it all began for me, well, back in 1974, whenever I'm 76, bought a Canon AE1 film camera. Still got it, still works, no software upgrades, still works to this day. Did a bit of that, and then digital came along. That was the end of film photography. I was actually creative director of a design studio, so I was doing lots of photo shoots, big digital Hasselblads. Completely fell out of love with photography because I just spent more time in Photoshop than actually taking photographs, or I felt that way anyway. Long story, I ended up in Transylvania for a short while, living in a forest in a cabin with no water, no electricity, no camera. Fell in love with taking pictures of images just with my iPhone. Came back. One of my designers showed me the work of Vivian Mayer, the street photographer with a Rolleiflex. I was just entranced. I bought a Rolleiflex for £100, bought a roll of film, had no idea how to use it, took a picture, and then it came out, and that was it. And that was I was back into analog. So that was me. That went really nicely. I got invited up to the Royal Academy, which was very sweet of them, some street photography thing I'd done. And then I saw the work of Dave Burnett. If no one's seen the work of Dave Burnett, he's an American photographer, large format. He photographed the 2012 Olympic Games in London using a Graflex large format camera with a World War II Aero Ektar bomber lens in it. And I saw his work and I just thought, oh my word, there was so much passion and movement in there that you don't get in a digital shot. You know, there was a shot of Usain Bolt coming over the line and some divers in midair, all shot on large format film. And there's a famous shot of this, thousands of photographers with their great big lenses, all like that. And there's this Dave Burnett, this little man with grey hair, sat there with this 1950s camera and a big lens. And I just thought, I want to do that. So so I bought a large format. So I started shooting large format. Lots and lots of different lenses, lots of stuff like that. And then one day I saw something called Wet Plate Collodion, which was actually an app that had a filter that said wet plate. And I thought, well, what the hell's that? So I kind of thought, well, that's kind of cool. I like the edges. And then I started to look into it a bit, and I couldn't understand why you had to do it there and then. Didn't understand. Anyway, long and short of it was, I went and did a workshop up in Manchester, and the very first image that came out, I won't swear, but I just said, effing hell, this is the photography I've always wanted to do. It just came up in the sync, and that was it. I ended up buying a camera there at the workshop, all the chemicals, came back and spent a month or two trying to find out how the hell I take a picture. And yeah, and from there on, it went on into lots of other things. So that's a brief how I got into it anyway.
Wow, I'm blown away anyway, kind of thing with it. So let's talk about the technique, because obviously you just don't shoot this style of photography, you shoot other styles of photography as well, isn't it? And we'll talk about links to kind of your Instagram and kind of education platforms later anyway. But as far as, you know, what, besides for the technique, what's your passion? Is it whatever's in front of that lens so you can shoot this style of imagery? Or is it people, or what is the kind of the bias for you?
So for me, I'm incredibly lucky to have my muse, person that loves this as much as I do, Katerina. We've worked together now for, I don't know, 12 years. Started off on a large format shoot, which was a group shoot, and then we've now worked together. And so a lot of the work you're going to see coming out is Katerina, and she's like very high-end professional model. She just adores wet plate and all things analog. In fact, the very first thing she ever said to me in this deep Portuguese accent, when I was, all these digital photographers were there taking snap, and I'm this old bloke with a film camera. And I said, look, sorry about this. It's taking a bit, you know, I'm trying to take exposure readers. And she just looked down at me and she just said, don't shoot digital. And it's like, okay, I like this girl. So we've just got back from, the two of us have just got back from Milan this weekend. We've just been in an exhibition in Milan, which was instant stuff, shot with a 1950s camera. And we actually ran a workshop while we were there in Milan as well. So my inspiration comes from classical Greek. It's everything you can think of. The more weird, the more wonderful. And that's why a lot of the models I work with come to me with ideas. They want to capture something, and I just follow wherever it goes, really. So yeah, that they create, and I've just got the chemical side, my side of it as well. So yeah, so that's kind of how we do it. Yeah.
So you're shooting still on the Rollie, or you shooting other things, or what are you doing?
Yeah, we just did a shoot. I can send you some images. We just did a lovely shoot 3 weeks ago now. We tried to get into Highgate Cemetery. But we couldn't get into Highgate Cemetery because it was obvious Katerina was a professional model, and you have to pay and get in. So we went to another cemetery, and we got some beautiful, beautiful shots of her. Stunning shots using the Rolleiflex shooting. And I took 2 rolls of film. One was 400 ASA black and white, and one was 400 ASA color. And I developed them all here, both color and black and white. And there's nothing like it, really, you know. And what do the models get from this? Well, they get to have all the high-res images as well, and all the behind-the-scenes stuff. I tend to find whenever I've done a shoot, I go onto Instagram, and there's so much footage of them in the studio, because my studio is a bit of a Victorian wonderland, really. So I find them filming themselves in there all the time, sort of thing. So yeah, inspirations come from anywhere. And yes, I'm using the Rolleiflex. The Rolleiflex, I started with the MX EVS 1955 that I took round India, 24 rolls of film. Everybody wants to be photographed with the Rolleiflex, so it doesn't matter where you go, everyone's happy to be photographed. Then I moved on to the 2.8 E2, 2.8 E2, and I also use the Rolleiflex. If anyone knows the Rolleiflex, I use a Rolleiflex SL66, which is the equivalent of the Hasselblad. So not Hasselblad, the oh god, what is it? The oh god, I forgot the name. No, not Mamiya. It's the big one that everybody wants to buy, the 500 something or other. Oh god, I forgot the name of it. Anyway, the thing about the SL66, you can change the lenses rather than have to buy a new camera for a different lens. And with that, you can shoot macro photography as well. It just, so when I do a shoot, it's insane. There's probably about 8 cameras on the go with every shoot, and they've all got their own thing to do as well. So yeah, I still shoot Rolleiflex, yes.
Very cool. At some stage, we should talk about pure black and white, shouldn't we? We won't do that today.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a whole different discussion. Because obviously, I've as a film photographer of old,
Yeah.
since I've been into digital, I mean, I spent the big money in '95.
Yeah.
And I've never really shot film since 2001. I sold all the Blads there and everything else with it and things, all the 6.7s.
Yes, Hasselblad. That's what I meant. Yeah.
Hasselblad, yeah. I sold all the Blads, sold all the Mamiyas, sold everything really, all the 5.4 stuff as well. Yeah, but because I knew I wasn't going backwards, you know, it was the future and everything else with it and things really. And I've got no nostalgia backwards.
Right.
I am still a black and white photographer at heart, though.
Yeah.
So at some stage, I would love to actually do somebody like yourself who's kind of really in the thrall, in the middle of it, kind of loves the passion for black and white, because it's the likes of you that will encourage the generations to actually go out there and buy a second-hand film camera, stick a roll of film in, and basically have a crack. And you can go still to the art centers that still have dark rooms today, and you can learn to process without all the big investment. So I'm getting you back, and that, even if you don't want to, you're coming back.
Absolutely.
Even before we get going. So, Dave, let's talk technical for a minute. We'll jump onto an image.
Yep.
And then I think we should start to explore the technique, because obviously once we understand the technique, images are going to be very similar in their kind of the process wise, but they're going to be very different photographically and everything else with it and things really.
Yeah.
So would this be what you would call a classic wet plate collodion or what?
Yeah. So I don't know if your viewers are aware of the process itself as to how it works, but I mean, yeah, this is a tintype. So this is on a sheet of aluminium. This is a tintype. So this is Anna, Polish model, beautiful, beautiful model. Very, very big on Instagram. She came along, never met me before, and she just looked in the sink because it appeared in the sink next to me, and she just said, "That's magic." She watched it appear, and she said, "This is magic." I was like, "Yeah, it is magic." So yeah, so that's a tintype. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
and you can do it on glass as well?
Yeah, glass is my space. Glass, amber types are my place. That's where I want to be.
Okay.
Tintypes are one thing. Amber types have so much more in them, which I can talk about. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Now we see all this kind of sudden drops of depth of field through, you know, f1.2 or f2 apertures and all this stuff in the world of normal photography, we'll say.
Yeah.
But we're looking at an image that pretty much is a contact print, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So
that's what we've got, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah. So this one's shot with the 1894 Dalmea 3B portrait lens. So it was made for taking portraits back in 1894, and that's what it's still doing. And that's why it's got this beautiful sweet spot in the middle and a beautiful drop off as it drops away, you know, and it still does its magic all these years later. So yeah.
Let's talk us through the technique of everything to do with the process, can we? So whether it's on tin or whether it's on glass, can you step us all the way through? Because obviously it's quite involved, isn't it? It's not an easy thing to do, otherwise everybody be doing it.
Yeah.
Talk us through from the beginning of the creation.
So yeah, you do need to be dedicated. So yeah, when I teach it, the first thing I always do is health and safety, because you need to do health and safety because there are chemicals here which are quite dangerous, so you need to be respectful of them. So the way it works at the beginning is you have to have all your chemicals in line. So I'm using a silver nitrate bath, which is 9% solution of silver nitrate. So silver nitrate crystals in distilled water. That's my bath, and I have to, by measuring it, I have to keep it at 9% all the time with a hydrometer, and I have to measure that after every other shoot, which is fine. Collodion is a mixture of collodion, various other nasty chemicals. It's like a gloopy syrup. It's got silver salts in it, various other bits and bobs. It's got gun cotton in it. It's highly explosive if you're not very careful with it, but you are very careful with it. So that's my collodion mix. And the way it works is I have my plate held in my hand and I pour on my collodion. and it goes around all four edges and drips off back into the container. At that point, I'm waiting for my collodion just to gel over. I just put my little finger on the side, and when I see it's just gelled over and it's not runny anymore, it goes into the bath of silver nitrate in the dark. I then cover it up. And while I'm doing that, I'm preparing my developer. And developer is just a simple mixture of a few chemicals. Prepare that, and the plate sits in the silver nitrate for 3 minutes. And while it's in the silver nitrate, it becomes excited. The two chemicals come together, and I end up with a photographic plate. After 3 minutes, I take the plate, whether it's glass or tin, out of the silver nitrate in red safe light. I wipe the back off because silver nitrate is very corrosive. It's also, if you get silver nitrate in your eye, it will blind you as well. So it's all done very carefully. It then goes into a plate holder, a standard plate holder, and the dark slide, it's closed shut. And obviously there's a dark slide on one side. That then comes out of the dark room, comes into the studio, and I have about 15 minutes to take the picture because it's a wet plate collodion, and it can only work while the plate is still wet. Once it's dried out, the developer can't get to the plate, so the process doesn't work. I take my picture. The one thing everyone needs to know is that collodion is very slow, wet plate collodion. It has an ISO rating of 1. So that's why my hero, Julie Margaret Cameron, some of her shots were like 3-minute exposures. So I've kind of got a bit of a flash system going on, which is how I can manage to freeze the action and put some backlights in as well. You take your shot, you go back to the dark room, you then pour your developer on and you develop the plate for 15 seconds. You then adjust your exposure. So 15 seconds is the development. The longer you develop for, the lighter it gets. If you develop it for too long, you end up with like crystally bubbles all over it. And if you haven't given it enough light, the whole plate is black. So that one there has got a nice combination of highlights and shadows. At that point, the moment you got your 15 seconds, you do dodge and burn. While you're in those 15 seconds, you have 15 seconds to dodge and burn the plate as well with water. So in other words, I'm washing off the highlight end and I'm keeping the shadow in, detail still coming up. So you have to be quite quick and very careful with your process. Once that's done, you wash your plate. It goes into standard fix. If it takes a minute to clear or 30 seconds to clear, you give it 1 minute. It then gets washed. Wash it for, 30 minutes, then dried. And then after a day or two, you coat it with shellac. At that point, it's archival, and it will be around for another 150 years. And that's the end of the process. Yeah. So, yeah.
And is the development of the plate done in red light?
Yeah, everything's in red light. So the moment the plate comes, you can pour the collodion on in daylight, but when it goes into the silver nitrate tank, it has to be in red safe light. Okay. And the moment it comes out of the tank, it's in red safe light, and then the process is red safe light all the way until it goes into the fix. And once it's in the fix, obviously the light can go on there, because as soon as the plate's washed off after development, you can't develop it anymore. So I can flick the light on at that point, and I can actually see the negative. So if I'm working with glass ambrotype, I can see a beautiful negative in front of me, and it only flips to positive when it goes into the fix. That's when it flips from negative to positive, which is the magic bit. That's where most people, and some women, just burst into tears because they just like quite overwhelmed with it all sort of thing. So that's the process anyway. Yeah.
Brilliant. So are you shooting 5.4, 7.5, 10.8? What are you doing?
I shoot everything from tiny little mini ones, these tiny little things like this big, up to the largest I've got in my lounge there is 17 inches by 14 inches. So that's a huge plate, and that was it, the Julie Margaret Cameron exhibition. So I've got some very large plates, so everything in between really. Yeah.
So it's scary as hell, isn't it? The technique and the chemicals and everything else with it and things. Really, you need to go on a course. I mean, I would say that unless you're absolutely a geek of geeks, you've got to go on a course to do this. Agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people talk on the wet plate forums about, what books to read. But I mean, my friend Shane Bulkovich, who's the very big guy in America who's done all the Native Americans, he's coming over to lecture at Oxford University soon. Like he said, just do a course. Just don't read about it. You just have to do it. You have to walk in there, smell the chemicals, pour the chemicals and do it. There's nothing. You just have to do it. You can't read about it. Yeah. So yeah, you got to do it. So do a course, whoever it's with. I use John Brewer up in Manchester. A lot of people come to me. I did one, and I've done a couple this month. And I'm really pleased that quite a few people have gone on to do it. I know I saw someone's just done a big shoot the other day for a big opening of a Victorian film, and they've done it on wet plate collodion. And there's a guy I trained as well. So that was cool. So that's good. So yeah.
Very good. Anything you want to talk about this image before we move on?
No, and it just came for a day, and we just shot tintypes. Yeah. So we shot a lot of film, but we shot some tintypes at the end. Move on. Yeah, let's move on.
Cool. The edges to this.
Yeah.
Is that the pure edge of the tin?
Yeah. The edges are what make it. See, a lot of people talk about getting clean plates, and I hate clean plates. If I'm going to shoot clean plates, I might as well shoot digital or film. Yeah. The reason I get these edges is because there's a rebate inside the tray when I put it in, and it's the old chemicals react, and I get these. They're called oysters. And what I do is, when I work with Katerina, she said the plates are too clean. They're too clean. So I use contaminated gloves to touch the edges to get contamination, and then we get explosions going on and things like that. So, but that's where the edges come from. Yeah.
Is it possible to transport the kit to kind of work somewhere else?
Yeah. I took, so on the Isle of Wight is the place called Dimbola. And if anyone's going to do wet plate, they need to know about Dimbola. Dimbola is the home and the workplace of Julia Margaret Cameron in 1874. She still is, from my point, the greatest wet plate collodion photographer of all time. And she didn't start to learn until she was 48. In fact, she took the images of Darwin that were on the £5 note and things like that. Her work is stunning, and I had the massive honor to have an exhibition in her house. So I exhibited in her house for 3 months, and when I was there, I went back, and because I've got a collodion van. So in the back is a darkroom in the back of my van, and so I went and I was photographing the staff members there using wet plate collodion in Julia Margaret Cameron's bedroom. So it doesn't get bigger than that. So yes, you can transport it. Yeah. So yeah.
Very good. So this image, let's talk about this one first.
Yeah, so that's Katerina. Once again, I've got a little space out beside my dark studio, and in it there's an old piano. So that's the old piano out there. I've got a set of wings that I made years ago. They're made out of packaging foam. And basically I give Katerina an idea, and she just goes with it. So so that one there, again, we're shooting with the big Dalmaya 3B lens. So I've got the huge camera, the big tripod, and I actually did drag, although we had, the thing about wet plate collodion, is that it loves ultraviolet. That's the spectrum it likes to be in. So outdoors, you've got some, lots of ultraviolet. But I did actually use a flash with that one as well. So you can see that the flash across her face has come from me firing a flash at the same time. So that is a 10-inch by 8-inch glass plate. So you get to see that come up in the sink together at the same time. And like I say, what I do is I'll dodge and burn. So I'll be washing off her face while I'm letting some of the details still come up on the piano at the bottom there. So it's quite a technical. You can do a lot with wet plate. You can do a lot with wet plate. And the thing about an amber type as opposed to a tin type is they're almost like, there's no grain with wet plate collodion. There is no grain at all. It's continuous tone all the way through. So you can just blow it up and blow it up and blow it up. Yeah, and it's just the most amazing process. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so that's tin type. So that's a glass amber type, 10-inch by 8-inch, with the piano out the back with Katerina. Yeah.
So this is going into an enlarger, and you're going from there, or are you having to recopy it, or what?
No. So what I've got a hybrid solution. So all my plates get scanned in at 3000 DPI using an Epson 750 Pro scanner. That's how they all get archived and put away. So I've got a copy just in case. It's also, that's how the model has access to everything as well, because I scan it in. So 10-inch by 8-inch. I don't have an enlarger that big. I've got a De Vere enlarger, a 5-inch by 4-inch one, 1950s. That will take 5 by 4 plates, which is why I do shoot a lot of 5.4, because I can project them up. But what I do with the 10x8, this particular one here, I will do split tone printing. So I'll go in and use the various split filters, and then just get some beautiful results with that. And like I say, the tone is just, it just goes on and on and on. It's just stunning. You wouldn't believe, for an 1851 process, just how much detail it can be captured in it. It's amazing.
Wow. Let's go to our next image.
Yeah.
I've got to say, this is my favorite out of the images. I'm not supposed to have favorites, but it is. What's the story behind this one?
So that's Katerina again. Again, it comes down to when you work with the model, we do interviews and things like that together, because we work so much together. It all comes down to trust. And this big exhibition we were at, which is an uncensored exhibition, we were talking to a lot of photographers and models, and it's all down to trust. Like, most models can tell within 10 seconds the photographer they're with. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we had this huge bond and trust, and I had this idea of the blindfold thing, and I found a dead dragonfly in my conservatory, and I had it for a while in a little box, and I just saw her. I said, trust me, trust me, trust me. So there was a pin through it. I said, right, just open your mouth. She just opened her mouth a little bit, and I just put the pin in her mouth. So she took the dragonfly, and that was it. I went round. So that's the tin type. So that's a 7" by 5" tin type. Yeah. And that was in the exhibition as well. So it's one of my favorites as well. Yeah, I love it.
How difficult is it for the focusing?
It's not difficult at all, because the big camera I use it's a 10x8 camera, obviously. I spent a lot of money having a Fresnel glass screen made for the back of it. Yeah. So I spent £300 on that, which it just basically, I don't even need to put a hood over my head. It's so bright. So I'm always focusing on usually one eye. That's all I ever go for. And my depth of field is probably about, I don't know, 5mm, depending on how far away I am. And obviously this one here, if you see the original, I'm focused on the veins in the wing of the dragonfly. And the other thing is, you have to, when you work with your model, they have to say so still. I mean, like, they have to know what they're doing. 5mm, they're out of focus. So, because obviously between me focusing, at that point, I have to open the back of the camera up and put the darks and put the plate holder in. So there's a time between that when I can't see what they're doing, sort of thing. So they have to stay so still. But that's that one. It was easy to focus on that because it's so bright here.
So bright. What's the biggest technical failure?
Oh God, there's hundreds. You could do so many. I mean, the model can move, and then in which case the picture's out of focus. I've done every mistake you can make. I did a huge one, which was a mermaid, and it was 10 minutes for me to carry the plate across the mud flats on the river, and I forgot to take the dart slide out when I got back. So there was no shot. So yeah, I mean, chemical fogging, silver drop off, contaminated developer, collodion getting too old, silver nitrate weak or contaminated, developer not working. There are so many that can go wrong. And that's why when I was at London College of Print back in the 70s, I was taught, there was a little saying, it was like, photography is the control of many unforeseen variables, which is true. And that's why when I teach, this is all about process. You do the same thing over, and it's muscle memory. You just do, and that's when something goes wrong, you change one thing. Otherwise, you don't know where you are. You know what I mean? You just change. You could be chasing it forever. So, yeah. So, but basically, the chemistry is the one thing you have to keep an eye on, really.
Is there a modern tweak to the process? So, is there anything, like coating something other than glass or tin with different chemicals to actually become photosensitive and things? Really? Have you played with anything?
Yeah, I'm looking at one next to me now. I did a project where I went down on the Thames and I just picked up. I was looking for Victorian bottles, and every time I found something, I looked around and took a large format photograph of the scene behind it. So I found this beautiful Victorian bottle, bottom of a bottle, and I took a picture, and it had the Tower Bridge and the Shard behind it. And I came back and I cleaned up the bottle, the bottom of the bottle, cleaned it, put it into silver nitrate, coated it, put it on the base of my enlarger, and I projected the image that I'd taken onto it and developed it. And now I have a picture of the shard in this Victorian bottle sort of thing, you know. So yeah, and I also work with what else do we work with? Colored sheets of vinyl. Yeah, I mean, you name it, I've had a go. Some things have disintegrated because the silver nitrate destroyed them. But yeah, bottles, round bottles. I've tried just about everything, really. Yeah. So yeah.
Very cool. And I touched on it at the beginning, and I do apologize. Obviously, you know, the likes of Photoshop, you can simulate the style in some way. What's your thoughts on this? Very bad? Okay?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I have this silly mantra now, because like I'm just going in the opposite direction to everyone else. I'm going back further and further now, really, with Pinhole and everything else. But yeah, I mean, it's fine. It's fine. But I have this mantra that, for instance, I mean, I've got it here, but like, if I can't, I mean, that's an image that I took. I don't know if we're uncensored here or not. This is some images we took the other day at the exhibition. If I can't hold the image in my hands, it's not real. So that's my mantra. So, you know, yes, I've always used Photoshop. I used to use my whole life in Photoshop. Photoshop's amazing, you know. And sure enough, if I scan that in, of course I'll just nick out a little bit if there's something in there, you know, or a bit of dust on it, I'll take it out. But for me, it's the fact that if I turn around, on my wall are all my images, and they're real. I can hold them. So Photoshop's fine. It's just yeah, it's just not what I do. Yeah.
What's the story behind this image?
So this is Claudia and Camille, and they both came to me, and they want to do a French bordello type shoot. And so I set it all up with all the materials, and they sat still. And that's a 7x5 sheet of glass. And when that one came out in the sink, that was just blown away with that one. That's actually shot, I think that one is shot with the Aero Ektar lens. I think that's the Aero Ektar lens. So they've got even more sharpness and detail in that one. But that, honestly, that one, if you see that one blown up, it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. And yeah, and the very fact that it's a one-off, that's what I love. It's just one image, and that's it, you know, and I can hold it in my hand and it's real, sort of thing. Yeah. So yeah, that was that one.
Talking about one-offs, what's your thoughts on Polaroid and Polaroid transfer and things? You ever been a fan?
Well, that's where I've just come back from Milan. So that was an instant exhibition. That's what that was all about. And so these are all. So whenever I'm doing a shoot with any model, I always take Instax with the 5x4 1950s camera, and that was the one we just had some stuff shown at the exhibition. And I mean, this is that one there was taken the other way. That's with a veil. I find it, yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. And strangely enough, while I was in Milan, I met this guy, and I was blown away. I ended up buying 2 of his images, and yeah, I totally get it. The Polaroid thing is a new play. I shoot 10-inch by 8-inch Polaroids, which is a big thing to do. But I just looking at the stuff that this guy has been producing, it's like, oh, okay, he's going to come over with a Russian model in December, because he's got 3 fridges full of Polaroid and FP100C. But of course, it's getting lower and lower and lower and lower and lower. So he's eventually going to move over to wet plate collodion. So he's going to bring his Russian model over, and we're going to do, with Katerina, we'll do some Instax and some Polaroid, and then we'll move on to wet plate, which will be a lovely sort of mix. So yes, I love Polaroids. Yeah. Cool.
Right. Our next image.
Yes.
Oops.
Aha. No, that's an interesting one. So that's a 5x4 glass amber type. Katerina was training to be a white witch, and for part of her project, she had to do a plate, and I had to teach her how to do it. So she had to pour the chemicals, and what happens with this is that we've got the whole dart room in red safe light. So the lens cap has come off in red safe light, and she has come round and joined into the picture, and I'm controlling one flash and she's controlling a second one. So she focused on me. She came and joined the picture. Then I turned on the main or the continuous lighting, and then she fired the flash. So as far as I'm concerned, she took the picture because she fired the flash. And that's how we're both in the picture at the same time, which is something we love doing. We just love both being in the picture. And I just love the way that one came out, the way her eyes are just looking at me. And she always calls me the master for whatever reason. So that's why she stuck a crown on my head. So, yeah. But, yeah, I love that picture. It's such a sweet picture. Yeah.
Now,
and
they've all got a slight tone to them, or the majority of them got a slight tone to them.
Yeah.
Is that something that is natural characteristic to the style, or is that something that you're adding in?
No, it's just that's just the way they are. They all have a lovely patina to them. I mean, they get coated at the end with a shellac, which adds another sort of layer of, antique look to it as well. So, which is all part of it. I mean, you can see all the edges around that one as well. I think even with that one, you can see a big loop at the top. That's where around the edge of the glass plate, you paint or you put 50% egg white and water. You paint around the edge of the glass plate, and that's to stop the collodion lifting off and floating off. So we just go a bit mad with it, and we just paint it in, and we scrub around, and we just create little weird shapes with it. So yeah, they're just yeah. And Katerina I think she now has close to 300 in her apartment now, original images. That's her currency, really. She just wants all these images. So yeah. So yeah, that's what that one's all about anyway. Yeah.
Very cool.
Our
next image.
Yeah, that is a so that's in the background there. That's a beautiful hand painted forest background on canvas. It just weighs a ton, that thing. So she's got down all her tarot cards, and she sat down. This is actually a 5x4 glass amber type, I think. That is the sister to that is the massive one I've got in the other room, the 17-inch one, which is the biggest plate I've ever done, which was the center of the exhibition. So that's a 5x4. Yeah. So that one's very much based on mythology, etc., etc. But the woodland in the background came out ridiculously well because there's a bit of an infinity curve with it. It comes down, and then all I've done is I've put plants, pot plants all around, just to break up the lines and things like that. But yeah, that's another one just done in my little studio. Yeah.
Do you consider yourself as a documentarian, a portrait photographer, a storyteller? What do you consider yourself to be?
I think if anything, it'd be a storyteller. Yeah, I see an image and I just try and put it onto glass or put it. Yeah, I think storyteller is a good way of putting it. I mean, I've got an idea of my daughter. I haven't worked with her for a long time about. Right now, there's some beautiful plants out at the beginning of spring, and there's a beautiful lane I go to, and I want to take the van there, and I've got this lovely praying chair, sort of a religious praying chair. I just want my daughter to go there in this lane, and I do a glass plate, and she'll just be doing that sort of thing. So I have this image in my head, and then it's down to me to go and capture this image, to create it and capture it. So yeah. So yeah, that's what I do. Yeah, so that's Cleopatra. So Cleopatra's she is actually Egyptian, beautiful model, absolutely stunning. So we've done some stuff, and she said, "Can I do something?" I wanted to say, "Yeah, absolutely." So she did the sort of thing on the lips. I said, "Perfect." And I said, "Put your other arm up above your head because it creates this lovely shape between the two arms. It just brings it all together." She did that. We did that shot, and that was the front cover of Photo magazine or something, a new article on people going back to film. But yeah, so that's a 7x5 7x5 tintype. Yeah, which is on my wall right there. Yeah, I love that one. Yeah,
this looks very vintage in everything. And so the last image that we just saw of the girl on the background, I mean, that besides for the sharpness because of the lack of movement within the image, I mean, that could be, it's a beginning of the century or, etc., isn't it? Whereas the background, the prop in and everything else with it and things really. And we've got, obviously, this is a very vintage kind of almost like a gypsy-esque kind of shot.
Yeah.
Is that something you're purposely trying to do, is put it back to a time of then? And how do you feel if you shot a more modern style of subject styling, it would actually fit in with this?
I mean, we have done modern styling. I mean, it very much comes to when the model walks into the studio and I see them on the back of the camera, it then becomes very apparent where you're going to go. And also, most of the models that have contacted me and want to work with me, I have a chance to look at their profiles and see what they've done.
Yeah.
You know, I have a lot of discussions and debates about models and purple port and things like that, and photographers. So I'm not interested in what anyone else does. So I very much just see someone, and this is all about. It's a collaboration. Me and Cleopatra are having a collaboration here. Do you know what I mean? She's as much part of this as I am. And like I always say, I always think the hardest part of every shoot is the model. It's always the model, because people don't realize just how much effort goes into by a professional model to create this stuff. And without a model, I'm nothing. I just got a blank screen, you know. So yeah, but obviously the process, the very fact that I'm losing an 1894 lens and I'm using an 1851 process, it's going to lend itself to having a vintage look. All we're doing is just bringing contemporary people into it with their makeup and their hair, you know what I mean, and their bolder looks. But what we're able to do now is that the Victorians, they had their long exposures, so they were limited. So everyone had to be triangulated, you know, they had to be leaning on something to keep them still. Whereas because I'm able to use a flash sometimes, I can freeze the action. So I can start to put in, you know, rim lights and shadows and highlights and fire off different lights in different places. So I can start to take it somewhere else that it never has been before, sort of thing, from the Victorian time anyway. But yeah, that's what I do.
Is there anybody that you've kind of come across that has kind of put a twist on the style?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, there's a few people in Russia that I adore, because the models they work with are just stunning, and the costumes and the settings they create are so beautiful, you know, and they just create this other little world inside this little frame. So they're the people that I love. I don't really like just the stock, you know, head and shoulder look. I try and take it somewhere else. Shane Bulkovich in America, he's just doing 1,000 Native American shots, and his stuff goes to the Smithsonian, and he does some big collaborative shoots, and they're amazing. There could be 10 people in it, sort of 15 people in it. So it's when people really push it. I mean, he did Greta Thunberg and things like that. So yeah, I love it when you make it, people that have never seen wet plate suddenly see it for the first time, and it's like, you know, and it's like they just get it straight away. Everyone gets it straight away. The moment they look at it in the dark room, they just get it. They just know why I'm doing it, because there is nothing like it. There's nothing like wet plate, and it's the fact that it's a collaborative process. So Cleopatra we've taken that shot, and from taking that shot to developing the plate and seeing it is about 4 minutes. So very often, like, models tell me when they shoot with photographers and they shoot digital, there's not a lot of interaction. Sometimes it's just looking at the back of the camera afterwards, you know, click, 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 and then looking at the camera. And whereas she just like, right, in we go, we develop it, we fix it, and then it comes up in front of it. So we get to, the whole process is done together straight away. So she sees it the same time as I see it, and which for me is the magical part of it, you know.
I'll move to the next image with this question before we get there. Because the plate is going to get too dry, you've got to shoot faster.
Yeah.
So, you know, like if you're shooting on 5.4, 10.8 Polaroid or film, basically there's a lot of look-in time, isn't there? There's a lot of perfection time before you take the image.
Yeah.
You're kind of on borrowed time with the plate, no? So you're shooting technically at a quicker rate than you would with film?
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite quick with film anyway, because I know it. So so the way it works is I always shoot film. I normally shoot Polaroid or Instax first, then film, 5x4, 10.8, Rolleiflex, and then I move on to wet plate, because once you get to wet plate, nobody wants to go back again, because they're all just so obsessed with it. But if you're in a reasonably cool studio, you've got 20 minutes maybe. I mean, the American Civil War was when they were doing it in the back of wagons, and they were known as black hands because their hands were black with silver nitrate. You know, how they did it under those conditions, I have no idea, because I've got air conditioning in my studio, keeping it at a nice cool temperature. If I go outdoors and it starts to heat up, then you've got a few issues. So yeah, I would say on average I could do 4 plates an hour, and that's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot, because you know each plate is special. So yeah, and that one is very special as well. So yeah.
What's the story behind this image? Family?
Oh, there's a story on this one, I tell you. Yeah. So this one is called the Fish Counter Ambush. So I was walking around Tesco's and I just saw this woman, and I like to work with a lot of older women because I've always feel that there's just as much beauty in, you know, a lot of people photograph younger girls, but there's just as much beauty in older women and lines and things like that. And I saw this woman and I was just bowled over by her. She was so beautiful. She was older and she had the most amazing freckles all over her face. And I watched her go past and I watched her go past again. And then she was buying some fish. And I just went up to her and I said, can I talk to you for a minute? And she said, yeah. And I said, I'm a photographer. And it's like that old line. And I said, honestly, I really am. I said, this is my Instagram. I said, I won Portrait of Britain. I really am a photographer. I said, I would love to photograph you. And she said, well, that's really sweet of you. Thank you. And I said, and seriously, I am. So anyway, she had my card and she contacted me and said, yeah, okay. All right. And she came with her daughter, and her daughter's a tattoo artist. And so she's not a model at all. So she just sat there and we got this plate. And I just adore this plate. It's just a mother and daughter, both absolutely stunningly beautiful, natural poses. And it's like, oh my God. And look at the lovely edges up around that. You've got these nice oysters creeping into the plate. And the beauty of that, they got 2 plates as well. And I got a plate. And I just so proud of that plate. It's just like it exudes love. It's just a mother and daughter together. Yeah. And that's my job. My job is to capture beautiful things. So that's that one. I'm very proud of that one. I love that plate. Yeah.
Well done, you. How do you manage expectations when you're working with a new model or a modern model who are unfamiliar with the slow kind of process and the analog, you know, time zones, as it were?
Yeah, I mean, I talk them through it, and they come here and we have coffee first, tea. I pick them up from the station, talk about it. 9 times out of 10, they've seen my work. Obviously, they would have seen my work. I'll talk about wet plates, talk about film. Yeah, I'll explain. Yeah, it takes a little bit of knowing. I mean, if you're working with I don't mean to put it down. If you're working with like a hobby model, they just, yeah, I mean, you get a feel straight away, and you know, and the moment they see the first plate come out, they get it, and then they know what they need to do. Yeah. So yeah.
Cool. What's the story of this image?
This is one of my favorites. Yeah, this is Sophia. Sophia's been a friend of mine, I know, 18 years now. One of the most beautiful women I've ever seen in my life. And she came, and I've got this beautiful Victorian mourning veil that you would wear for a funeral. And I just draped it over her head, and I just put it around her face. And so this is a 7-inch by 5-inch glass ambrotype. And she's like, I just focused on her eye, and that came out of the sink, and I was just quite emotional about it. And so that was in the exhibition on the Isle of Wight. And so what I did with that, I created a split grade printed silver gelatin print off of it. And that I just loved. I mean, if you see that in real life, you just see into her eye. That is one of my favorite pictures of all time. It's just, I adore that picture. Yeah. And the drop off and the light fade around the top, everything about that one's perfect. Yeah, I love that picture.
When you're shooting the portraits, do you need to have more light in the scene to fill in shadows and everything else with it? Because obviously there's a lot of blacks, isn't there, within the or it seems to be there's a lot of blacks. Do you need to lift the information, or is that going back to what you're on about in the developing where
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
basically
you've got
pulling
it.
it back.
Yeah, I mean that just comes with experience. You've got to know your lighting. So I've got a big reflector underneath to bounce the light up. I've got a main light, and then I've got some side lights, and I've got some lights from the back and something lighting up. So yeah, I know it. And then sometimes I might even bring in a snoot just to fire some light right into the eye, sort of thing. So I'm down to about a 3-second exposure now. Anything longer than that, you'll just get blur. So it's just my technique. I mean, I know Shane in America uses a daylight studio, so he doesn't use any flash. He just has a massive north window. And we all have our different looks, you know, and this is just the way I go. Yeah, so lighting is incredibly important. Lighting is everything with wet plate collodion. Is everything, yeah.
And are skin tones relatively realistic, or because they always seem a bit grayer? They always seem muted and so on. You know, like you talked about the woman with the freckles.
Mm.
You know, if you added a blue filter on the end of a black and white, you kind of have this kind of almost destruction of reality when you're shooting a face and everything else with it. Do you understand what I'm trying to get at with that?
Yeah, well, I mean, like I always explain to all the models, everyone, that wet plate collodion is brutal. It's absolutely brutal. There's no hiding from wet plate. It's going to show everything, you know, every wrinkle, every line. It'll look into your soul, you know, and that's why these are beautiful young models. You know, when I work with older women, it's going to pick up every bag, every line, and everything else. So, so you do have to. So it does pick the skin tones up. I mean, Sophia's got a lovely skin tone to her, so it's slightly darker. One of the plates we'll come to much later is working with a very light skin and a very dark skin. That's obviously never easy to light that one ever in any photographic format, but you kind of just know your lights, you know your process, you look at the skin and you make and 9 times out of 10, pretty much there on the first shot. It just tends to be there, and then I can compensate for some of it as I'm developing, and then you never get a second shot. Once you've done one shot, you can never go back. That moment has gone forever. You'll try it and you'll get somewhere, but you never get that beauty that you get on the first shot. So yeah. Cool.
And this is the image you're on about. This is our last image.
Yeah. So this is the one that won Portrait of Britain. So so this is tiny. This is a 3-inch glass plate, so 3-inch square glass ambrotype. And I'm working with my friend Ty and Imani. So bottom line is, you can obviously, Ty is very light skin and Imani's got very beautiful dark almost blue skin. So the way I work with that is obviously all the light is on Imani and it's just falling off onto Ty. Just what could you say? I just love that plate. It's not just, it's like everything, it's the eyes. It's all in the eyes. All photographers in the eyes, you know. Sorry,
go on.
No, you go.
How did you present this into the competition?
There was a British Journal of Photography. So I had another photographer come to my studio actually, and she just said, "I love your work. I love your work. You should enter that. That competition finishes tonight," and I entered it and won. So I went to the British Journal of Photography, Portrait of Britain, whatever it is. I think it's open for 3 months. So I entered it in with a couple of other images, and that one was one of the winners. So yeah.
And would that have been a scan from the original?
Oh yeah,
photograph the original scan, was it? Yeah.
Yeah. So I scanned it in, it's when I scanned it in, it was massive. I mean, it's like it's about 800 megabytes. It's a huge file. So it was all over London. It was at Waterloo Station. It was all over a massive projection backdrop things, and it was like, so you can blow this stuff up massively. So when you think the plate's only 3 inches square, but how big you can blow it up, because all that detail is in there. It's a bit like Victorian shooting raw on a digital camera. All that information is in there. You just have to pull it out. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Dave, it's been absolutely fascinating, honestly, and I'm sure we can talk for another day and a half on everything kind of thing with it. Guys, if you're interested in seeing more of Dave's work, there's several places to go. We've got some more questions to go with Dave anyway. But you can catch out some more of his information on his Purple Port, which is Dave Shrimpton, at Dave Shrimpton, all one word and things. You can kind of catch that out there. And then if you want to kind of see some more of his work, Instagram, there's 2 accounts. Let me bring those up so people know exactly what to look for. This is the Collodion dedicated page, is that correct?
Yeah, this is wet plate only. So this is the wet plate only Instagram page, yeah. And then you'll see everything in there.
Do you get frustrated because obviously the restrictions on what you can show on in social feeds nowadays and things?
Absolutely. I'm severely shadow banned. So so that's why I do Patreon. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. And then you've got so that account was ds_wet_collodion.
Yep.
You can find the link below. Instagram then is your
That's it.
There we go. And then this is the main one, or is the other one your main one?
This is everything. So you'll see right there. There's me in Milan. That's running the demonstration in Milan at the weekend. Then there's some 10/8 stuff. So this has got everything. This has got wet plate, large format, and Rolleiflex. So yeah, this has got a bit of everything in it.
Brilliant. And then we could go to the likes of your website address and things, which is daveshrimpton.co.uk. Have you got a YouTube channel at all?
Yeah, I've got a YouTube channel, which I've only just started.
Where can they find the information for that?
Good point. Yeah, really good point. I should know that, shouldn't I?
That's okay. I'll put a link in anyway, Dave, so it's not a problem at all. What's the tips for somebody looking to get into this? When's your next workshops? Where can they find them?
I mean, I'm based near Cambridge, so I tend not to. I mean, I do sometimes put my wet plates on my website, and there's a wet plate Collodion workshop section to it that talks about what I do. Up in the top right hand corner, I think you can go to workshops. There you go. Photography workshops and wet plate. There you go. So that's my studio. So you get to see my studio, the cameras we're going to use. And then it talks about what we do, and there's some referrals there. And I do put some dates in there. But to be honest, since I won the wet plate thingy, and then I've got so many projects on at the moment, I'm not advertising that many. I tend to wait for people to want to do one. So if anyone wants to do one, just get in contact. If you've got a mate, just say 2 of us are coming over, we're going to do something. And I do a 1 day and a 2 day. So 1 day is normally people just want to see what it's all about, and 2 days if you want to do it seriously, sort of thing. Yeah.
Brilliant. Dave, it's been absolutely an insight into a world that many will never go to go to and things, really. Any plans on book or?
Yeah, funnily enough, if anyone knows about, yes, I keep being asked to produce a book. So my big thing now is trying to find a publisher or someone that I can work with to build a book. So if anyone knows anyone that's good at doing photography books, I'm definitely looking to do that. What else am I doing? Got a couple of very, very exciting projects coming up that I won't even talk about because I don't want to jinx them. So that's exciting. So yeah, and I'm going to. So Shane Balkovich is coming over from America, so he's coming to my studio, which is going to be interesting. And then we're going to go to the wet plate weekend, which is in August, where all the wet plate Collodion photographers come together, and it's this big stately home, and we talk wet plate Collodion for a weekend and get drunk. Yeah, yeah.
How do audiences typically react to the images?
I think most people are just gobsmacked, really, because they've never seen. They're just used to digital. Do you know what I mean? And there's a very different look. There's nothing like it. Seriously, there is nothing like it. I mean, that's why I do it. I mean, it's like large format is great. I love my large format. I've got a big large format camera called the Chapel camera with a massive guillotine shutter on it, and I shoot 10-inch by 8-inch X-ray film with it, which I love shooting X-ray film. But wet plate just has this immediacy. It's that moment that the model sees it the same time as you do, and you just can't beat that. You just cannot beat that. And at the end of the day, you both, you go back for a glass of wine and there's like 10 plates just lined up, and you think, wow, yeah. So there you go. That's what it's all about.
Dave, thank you so much for your time, so much for your techniques, so much for your enthusiasm.
You're welcome.
It's been an absolute kind of blast. So remember, you can catch more of Dave's stuff via his Instagram, the Facebook, his website, and the YouTube channel. Just look for the links below, and you'll be able to go from there. Thanks, everybody. See you soon. Bye bye. Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome. Thank you, and enjoy the journey wherever you'll go.